Well, hello and happy Wednesday, and welcome to the Unboring Wedding Show live. I am thrilled to be here with you today. And it's a great day to hang out. Sounds like a lot of us here on the East Coast are getting some really crappy weather. John was the first one here to say welcome and hello. He welcomed us all here with his first comment about rainy, wet, crappy Massachusetts. And do love Massachusetts, so I wouldn't call it crappy. I'm not gonna let you call your home state crappy, but the weather leaves much to be desired today, and so it's a good day to be inside. So thank you for joining. I am super glad you are here. I was wondering who would show up today for this spicy meatball of a topic, but here you are. You are one of the brave people who showed up to talk about something that I have never ventured into before. But as usual, this is pro training for those of you who have an officiant business, but it is also kind of an FAQ training. So somebody asked me this question. I have been asked it before, but again, you just kind of stay away from the words politics and social issues or that kind of thing. Even now, perhaps the YouTube algorithms are flagging this, and I've got somebody watching me. But because it is one of those kind of contentious issues, just by talking about a potentially contentious issue, it can be contentious. And so steered clear of it, but somebody at Wedding MBA, and there you go, those of you who like to line up some shots before we start and take bets on how many times I'm going to talk about Wedding MBA, the big conference that we all go to in Vegas. Somebody there, so you can take a shot now, somebody there asked me this question. When I have a business and some social issue, some political issue is very important to me, do I or do I not talk about it in my business? And how do I do? Do I just steer clear and then maybe feel disingenuous about myself? Or is that an inappropriate way to use my business or things of that nature? It is something to think through. And so I decided to not sidestep this anymore, because I do have thoughts about it. As somebody who has run a business for the last 8-ish years, Unboring Wedding, when do you decide to talk about an issue? How do you not? And I really believe that in thinking through how I'm going to present this and roll it out, I've kind of got a bit of a blueprint, a bit of a footpath. I was thinking kind of flow charty. How do you make the best decision around sharing a social or political cause or issue? I don't really like the word issue, because ultimately we're talking about people. Whenever you're talking about politics, you're talking about people. That's kind of what's at the root of the word, right? Everything is political. Social, the same way. So sometimes we can issueize things, put them out there, make them black and white, almost like they're sitting on a piece of paper. But that is what makes us so fired up about issues, is that it's always about people. There are people involved. It's something we care about. And so I want to start today talking about business, then why we might want to talk about an issue or a cause, perhaps that's the better word, and how to make the best decision around that without ultimately getting ourselves into hot water and regretting any decision we make around sharing personal thoughts or feelings about a cause or an issue inside our business. Okay, so that's where we're going. I'm looking forward to that. I would ask everyone in the chat to join in, participate, and also be on our best behavior, and allow me to go through this without bringing up too many other hot potatoes or spicy meatballs in the chat specifically. Don't prove my point, is what I'm saying, because I know there's so many of you who show up here every week, a lot of members of Unboring Wedding Academy who are incredible. I look forward to seeing you. I wake up Wednesday, I think to myself, it is the Unboring Wedding Show Wednesday. But there are also potentially 7 billion other people watching who can hop in here and say just about anything. So I will say, I get asked a lot, how do I chat? How do I join the chat? And given what I just said, it is with some trepidation that now I will tell you, make sure you sign into your Google account. So if you don't have a Google account, make a Google account. That comes with Gmail, that comes with a YouTube channel. Sign into that, and then you will see the little chat box pop up when you come back to this video. You'll be able to comment, okay? So there is that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, and that's what makes it so great. So I'm going to scroll back in here. John was first. Bonnie then came in here and said, hello, joining from sunny and warm Nashville. Why don't you rub it in there, Bonnie? Glad to hear things are great out there. Claire is here from Okanagan. Beautiful Okanagan. Almost where we moved to, but then the East Coast got us, and so we are here in New Brunswick on the ocean. Reverend Claudia, and I love good afternoon unboring, so I was thinking, Claudia, good morning. Good morning, Unborings. How is it that I've gone all this time on video on YouTube and never said good morning, Unboring? Very good. I loved that you kind of sent me in that direction. Tamara's here from Illinois. Love that you're saying hello to the Unboring fam. Again, this is not members only office hours. We do have that once a month, and we did just come off of the Officiantly launch. That is our software that automates, creates, manages wedding ceremonies, first of its kind on the planet. And so those of us in Unboring Wedding are a little bit used to it just being our group. But again, we are live to the world. So good morning, all you Unborings, and good morning, all you Unboring fam. Anybody who's joining us, love that you're here. Reverend Michael says hello, good to see you. And Claire says it's 9 a.m. on the West Coast, no sunshine. Good day to be home and cozy with the Unborings. I agree. It is 1 o'clock here, Atlantic time, pouring and rainy outside. We did get some snow, so it does feel like a white Christmas, but that is washing away rapidly. I know I always feel a lot more Christmassy when there is snow on the ground, but these last few years, that has been fewer and more far between. Anita's here. Good to see you. And you're saying hi to Bonnie. And you guys are connecting to Decatur County. That's awesome. Jamie's here from Majorca. Good to see you. And Bill from Lake Tahoe. Reverend Michael is here from Florida. I'm glad you let us know where you are. So probably warmer down there. Good to see you. Sarah's here. Good to see you again. You're on your phone watching. Awesome. Those of you who, I gotta say, somebody commented on last week's video that I move around a bit too much in the YouTube videos, and they just advised me, stop moving around. You're making me feel motion sick. They said, maybe you got a nervous tick, but they said, I'm just going to give you some friendly advice. Don't move around so much on camera. To which I say, thank you for your comment. I don't think I can not move around. I get excited. Maybe it's my French blood. So maybe just listen. That would be my advice. I don't want to be self-conscious about keeping my body rigid. We can all improve on camera, I'm sure. But that's the kind of little comment that gets in your head and you start thinking, it just gets in there, right? So happy listening on your phone or your camera. I hope I don't make you sick wherever you are. Suzanne is here from the UK. Awesome to see you. And Officiantly Mike in the house. Amazing. One of our most loyal commenters and shepherds of the Unboring Wedding group, especially in our Facebook group. Good to see you. And holy cow, it is windy in Jacksonville. That's awesome. And raining in Florida. Again, I tell you, one of the things I love most about this whole thing on Wednesdays going live is hearing the North American weather report, and sometimes other places like when Peter joins us from Marrakesh or things like that. So good to see you here. Lisa's here. Greetings, LMC Officiant. Kiki is here, and Kiki is just about anywhere that there's a live. Although, did you miss last week, Kiki? I forget, but it's so good to see you here. And Kate was definitely turned off in the officiants group that popped up after the election. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, getting us back on topic, Kate, fascinating. Now, I think sometimes a little officiant group, one you might be referring to on Facebook or something like that, that can feel a bit like less like we are using our business platform and we're just more in a networking group. And yeah, it can get pretty hairy. Thanks, Kate, for giving us a little glimpse of what we might want to talk about today. And like I say, the kind of playbook, the blueprint that I believe will help us engage in these things in a way that is not a turnoff, frankly. I believe that you can do this kind of thing without alienating or risking your business or putting yourself in peril or that kind of thing. So I want to talk about how to do that. Forever Incredible, good to see you from Chicago. And is that Carla? I believe it might be. And so good to see you. Let's see. Claudia bought a new iPad for wedding workshops using Efficiently. That is amazing. I am so sorry I made you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And that's fascinating. So Efficiently, that's our software that Claudia is talking about. I wonder how it runs on a device. I will have to tell the developers, let's keep it tweaked. Let's keep it tight for tablets because apparently we have members using it for tablets. So that's pretty sweet. Hope it continues to perform for you. And we always continue to tweak for that. Mercy, good to see you. And you're saying hi to Carla. And Paul is here from Connecticut. Now, it is Carla. That's right. So I saw your picture, which is great. Your name is not Carla, but your picture, I recognized you from Wedding MBA. Shot number 2. Take it. All right. Let's talk about the topic at hand, which is how we want to engage in political social issues. And again, kudos to you for showing up, for being brave, for taking on this delicate topic with me. So for everyone in the chat is behaving well, etc. I want to start with some facts, okay? And so some facts here where we can start out is, of course, when you have a business, and in our case, we're talking most likely about wedding, officiant, or celebrancy businesses. You, at some point, maybe officiated for a friend or relative, like many of us, and then we got into officiating maybe a second or third. We loved it so much. This is how so many of us in Unboring Weddings started. We officiated for a friend. We said it would be a one-off. We crushed it. We melted faces. People laughed. People cried. They did it in front of 100 people. Well, 3 couples from that group then asked you to officiate. And next thing you know, you're in the rabbit hole. Next thing you know, you're saying, well, maybe I can put my shingle out there. And you have a business. And when we have a business like that, it means a lot to us. It is a special thing. It's like our baby. And so we really try to put as much care and thought and effort and energy into growing this thing, keeping it alive. Okay. And so that is, again, just a statement of fact that we absolutely love our businesses. They're important to us. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize our business. But of course, there are 100 different ways that we can mess up our business. We can not understand taxes. We can not understand customer service. We can start out with, bogus contracts or no contracts, and then expectations don't match our expectations of the client or their expectations of us. We can get bad reviews. These are all the things that keep us up at night. The road is fraught with peril when we are entrepreneurs who have our own business. There is enough out there that we can accidentally do to really step in it without, to bring us to today's topic, without overtly going on the socials. And this, of course, is a very 21st century issue we're talking about today, because it might have been harder back in the day unless you were shooting and releasing some sort of commercial or radio ad, which you probably wouldn't do. If you were a plumbing business, you wouldn't take up some social issue and an AM radio ad. But it is so easy on social now for all of us to have a platform, all of us to have a microphone and share our thoughts, things that are important to us. And that is why we are all at risk of of what we're talking about today. Okay. And so there are important decisions to be made around whether or not to use that microphone, to use our business as a microphone for things that are important to us. Now, here's another statement of fact. So we love our businesses. There's lots of ways to blow up our business or negatively affect our business just on a daily basis, just from businessing, just from doing business without making kind of a blunder, to use a chess term. I'm an avid chess player, and I don't like making blunders in chess because it really puts you behind. We don't want, and there's accidental blunders, of course. We don't want to, though, overtly go ahead and do that. But here's another statement of fact. In order for our business to be most successful and have the potential of being most successful, our business needs to be as widely appealing as possible to as many people, right? That's just another statement of fact. Now, I wouldn't advise that you go into business for every single person on the planet. By definition, when we start a business, for example, real estate agency, you're likely only talking to people who want to buy a house, maybe sometimes rent a house. If you are a plumber, your business is only for people who have plumbing. Okay. So that's what I mean by you are going to be going into business and solving a problem. I talk about this in my pro course for people who have that problem. That's how you have a successful business. How are you solving the problem for people who are experiencing a problem? When you put up your hand and say, I can solve your problem, then you accept money for that, then you have a business, not favors, not cookies. When you solve a problem and someone pays you money and you will take that money and solve that for them, that nice clean transaction. That's one thing I love about business is the boundaries are set. Expectations need to be set through contracts. I can go down another rabbit hole here, and I always say that, but I won't. Then you have a business, okay? And we want our business in whatever industry or niche we're in to be as widely appealing and inclusive to as many people as we can. And an extreme example that I might mean is if you open up a business and you say my business is only for three-legged hamsters and their owners, then of course you have really narrowed the number of people, just the number of people who are going to purchase product from you, right? And so I say that, kind of jokingly, but I do think it helps in the sense of you want to include as many people in your business. You want that widest possible client base. I would advise that you open a business for hamsters in general and include three-legged ones as opposed to only including three-legged hamsters and disincluding everyone else. Okay. So again, hopefully these extreme examples are helping you. You might be wondering, when am I going to get to the point? It is important to lay this groundwork to kind of linearly get to the advice I want to give you around sharing in your business. Okay. And I am peeking in the chat here and I see poor Hammy, Reverend Claudia, her heart goes out to hamsters. And maybe I've twinged you just enough, Claudia, to start a hamster business. and don't cry too hard for the fictitious three-legged hamster. But they need care and attention too. So start a hamster business that includes three-legged ones, not the other way around. I do see here that Mark is here. So good to see you. Cantor Mark bringing his best behavior to this delicate discussion and packing for your Cabo wedding. That is absolutely awesome. Enjoy Cabo while the rest of us are in the cold, rainy, Christmassy season. Okay, so those were some statements of fact. I want to round that up again. Our businesses are important to us. We can mess up our businesses naturally and accidentally in lots of ways. We don't want to intentionally make a move out of some passionate mistake that jeopardizes our business or the success of it. And then at the same time, for our businesses to be most successful, they do need to be most inclusive as they can be, okay? Now, this is all true of our business. When we start a business, that's all true of our business. But at the same time, our businesses do not exist in a vacuum. There are social and political issues and causes that are likely more important to us in a lot of ways than our business. Now, again, if it's a side hustle, if this pays your bills, you might think, the most important things to me are my family and my business, or my family, my community, my business, because it's literally how you feed the people you care about, or put a roof over their heads, or that kind of thing. So that is why, when you're an entrepreneur, your business is typically right up there. It's different than perhaps if you have a job. When you have a job, I always say that principle of solving problems still applies. You go to a job and you're being paid money, you're getting remunerated to solve the problem of that business. You're helping that company solve problems for the people they've decided to solve. But there's that one step removed. And sometimes you wake up in the morning and you think, I'm not that passionate about this. I like my coworkers, I like my clients, all that stuff. But you could quit and start something else tomorrow, theoretically, possibly, all the caveats. But when it's your own business and you've been growing it, you've been shepherding it, and you say, I'm solving this problem, there is a lot more care. However, some cause or some issue might come up that really is you're passionate about. It means a lot to you. And so suddenly we have this kind of competition with our business, in a way, competing for our heart, for our attention, for things we want to focus on and talk about. And that is when we start to get tempted, or thinking about, or considering using our business as a platform, a way to speak up against this issue, for this cause, as a platform for bringing awareness to it. And this is where we can make mistakes. And this is, like I say, where we want to take the ultimate care and really think through, in a flowchart kind of way, should I, and this is the heart of the question, should I or shouldn't I talk about a cause in my business? Should I or shouldn't I use my business as the megaphone for this issue that I really feel passionate about and care about? And so let's talk about the reasons why you might feel passionate about that and care about that. Now, all of us open Apple News, or if you got an Android, I don't know, some news app, all the time. We always open these things, see a headline, and have a reaction to it. I don't know about you, but my cortisol these days has been very tweaked by just headlines. Now, a lot of time, this is the joy of modern media. And there's a whole history to media that I'm not going to get into here necessarily. But 100 years ago, media was very very biased, in the sense of, in Canada, for example, liberal government, conservative government. Well, the liberal government had their own press, and the conservative government had their own press. And when you read a certain newspaper, you knew, a publication, you knew it was a liberal. It was a liberal mouthpiece, and conservative vice versa. Now, something happened around 50 years ago where we got the idea that media is neutral, and maybe there were attempts around that. But I feel like now we are kind of under the guise of, like, we think we're reading neutral news, but it is more like 100 years ago. And so we get a little bit mixed up and passionate. But anytime we open up the news, we have perhaps a reaction. And some stories we don't really care about. Others, though, will really, really affect us. And typically it's because there is some personal element. It hits close to home. Maybe it's involving a nationality that is important to us. Maybe something, people group, ethnic origins, your own country, your own state, a community that you identify with that is being marginalized or hurt, or you have a sense that there is some oppression going on. And that is where you feel like, that's not right. I need to fight this. I need to do something. And if you have your own business, now you have a choice. You can get on the socials, because that's typically where we go. I don't want to use keyboard warrior pejoratively, but that is kind of what we do nowadays. Is we have that microphone that, even 20 years ago we wouldn't have had. You could have written a letter to the editor at the newspaper, but very few of us could mass communicate a conviction about something, something that we feel needs to change, something that we feel needs to stop. But now we have all that potential. We all have that possibility. And especially if you have a business, now you decide, do I want to say something? Let's assume you do. Now, do I want to use my own personal social channel to get this message out. So let's say you have a personal Instagram account, but a Facebook business account. And you look at your Instagram and you say, I only have 7 followers on Instagram, but on Facebook, my business account, I have 7,000. And so, right, this is where the gears start turning for you. And you think, okay, if I'm weighing the pros and cons, the reason why I might want to share and speak out about this thing on my business is because I have way more audience or followers in my business than I do my personal. Nobody even really knows I exist in my personal account, or just a few friends. Or if I jump on the socials with, followers with my friends, then I'm just kind of preaching to the choir. I want to get this out there. I have a statement. I want to say some things. And this is where I would say we need to distinguish between wanting to say something, wanting to speak out about a personal issue in our business, an issue that's important to us in our business, wanting to and needing to. Okay? So again, this fork in the road. You've decided you're going to say something. You're deciding how to say it. Do I want to speak about this in my business for reasons like, well, my audience is bigger there. I'll have more impact, more eyes and ears will access what I'm saying. Do you want to, or do you need to? Now, an example of a reason why we might need to are it's a cause or an issue that directly affects our clients in our business. Okay, that to me is where you will be kind of pulled into needing to say something. I think, the ostrich with the head in the sand kind of thing. At a certain point in your business, there might be something going on that is affecting your clients or even the actual practice of your business, where you need to say something. You need to take a stance, okay? And so that's an example of need versus want. I actually didn't give an example. An example, I think, for wedding officiants would be something like doing weddings for the LGBTQIA plus community. Same-sex weddings, that is something where there is, typically 2 camps. You officiate for that community or you don't officiate for that community. And when you are in business serving that community and doing weddings for that community, then you are in a position where, you need to take a stance. You need to make a statement. And let's say, for example, you do perform same-sex weddings, but then your state may revoke that. We're seeing a lot of that in the U.S. right now, where there is a lot of concern, and so same-sex couples are rushing to get married because of something the state government might do or the Supreme Court might do. And so this is an example where do you just put your head down and go about business as usual? Well, I know a lot of officiants and celebrants who are very passionate about speaking out about this and then also saying that they provide that service. So this is where I want to continue to go down that road of feeling like you need to say something about this. That might be, like I say, something related to your particular industry, weddings in our case, or it might be, for example, if you are from that people group, if you are from an ethnic background, some sort of indigenous nationality or something like that, religious group, where something is happening, they are getting persecuted. I'm thinking of all the global issues right now, Palestine, Israel, now YouTube is really going to be flagging this, Ukraine, Russia, Syria, all these things where there's different sides. And I just want to bring those things up to see, okay, did that stir up something in you? Same-sex marriage, whether it's a social issue. That's where you need to start making decisions around, all right, what am I going to do? I don't want to sit idly by. I could use my personal, but in my business, I need to talk about this. Okay, so now we've decided I need to take a stance on this in my business. I don't just want to. It affects my clients, or it affects my ability to communicate or do my job or be authentic or be my person, or even just a sense of like, ethics. I feel like I need to speak against this or for this, and I'm going to use my business. Let's just say you've made that decision using the criteria of need and want. Well, what do you do next? If I feel the need to comment about a cause in my business, here's how I feel, and here's what I'm going to advise you do to go about it. First of all, you want to focus on the people who are suffering as a result of this issue. So for me, the cause would be helping to alleviate the suffering of the people experiencing the negative side of this issue. And again, I'm trying not to get into semantics. So we got issue, we got cause. So I'm just going to say, if you're mentally taking notes, circle the word suffering. Suffering is very real. Suffering is something that humans feel. Suffering is something that we see and we acknowledge. I know sometimes there is some stigmatization of it. Oh, you snowflake, get over it. Right. We're going to put that aside and just say, in conflict, in issues, there is usually somebody who we identify as suffering, and that is what makes us respond or even react, right? Like I said, think about when you open your news app or wherever you get your news, you read the thing, someone is suffering, and that's what makes us react. Maybe it's somebody very important to us, again, like I say, for ethnic issues, for your nationality, your people group, your religious group, your community somehow. I'm thinking of the town that I live in, for example. There's a lot of people experiencing homelessness in our town. It is a small town of 5,000 people. So when we have, for example, 70 people who don't have a home, they are hurting. It's cold outside, it's winter, and it's all our community talks about. But here's what happens in our community. Lines start to get drawn and people start talking about, yes, people are suffering. We can see them. They're sleeping in the park. They're shivering. Somebody passed away last year, but they were taking drugs. But they're not from here. Well, what caused them to get in this situation in the first place, et cetera, et cetera. Now, do you see where all of a sudden the contention can start? The contention starts when we talk about the cause of whose fault it is, essentially, who started it. This is where I feel like people are very childlike in that sense. We're still like on a playground. Well, you started it. Well, you started it. In your business, here's I'm going to bring this home here now. We're really getting to the meat of it. In your business, focus on who is suffering, who is actually hurting, not potentially going to be hurt. Again, personally, you can do whatever you want. Okay. So I'm not giving you advice based on what you might do on your personal account or how you talk about it or a letter to the editor or a Facebook post on your personal account. I'm saying in your business, when you have people of all persuasions looking at your business. For example, today I said we're publicly on YouTube here, 7 billion potential viewers. I can present a cause by saying, here's the people who are suffering, and here's the response, here's the people who are causing it, and it's their fault, and they started it. And well, all of a sudden, when I do that, the chat is going to be full of opposing opinions, people who are taking issue with my view of how it started, who started it, whether or not we should be helping based on who started it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to advise you, if you're going to speak about a cause in your business, focus just on who is being adversely affected and how they're suffering and the negative effects on their well-being as a result of what is happening. And that's the second piece. Talk about their suffering and then just talk about what is happening. So, for example, this country invaded this country. You don't want, well, then you're going to get, well, who started? Okay. Don't get bogged down in that. This country invaded this country, and now we have a whole bunch of people displaced. That's really all it needs to be. Or you can say, for example, we don't have enough housing in my town. We just don't. And so now there are people on the street and they are suffering and they're freezing. Now what do we do? Okay, and you are going to have opinions on how the thing started and the cause and who's responsible. You are, because you're a human being. I'm not suggesting that you park that part of your brain. I'm saying in your business, what is your motive for bringing it up? And now here's the other thing I want to talk about. So we'll go back around here. If I feel the need to comment, I'm going to just talk about the suffering, and I'm just going to present the facts without judgment, without bringing up whose fault it is, without finger pointing or singling out the perpetrator. You might want to do that on your personals. You might want to do that with a letter to the editor or all those other things I was saying. But in your business, here's how you motive check why you're doing what you're doing. And here's a question that I would ask you. As you bring something up, can you talk about the people who are hurting and suffering as a result of this issue or this cause? Can you talk about them without railing against the ones who are causing the harm? Are you able to do that? I would say if you're not able to do that, then you potentially hurt your business by wading into that arena of whose fault something is, who's at risk, who's cause, which world leader, which rich person in town, whatever. If maybe you're talking geopolitics, maybe you're talking about something really granular, which Supreme Court justice, which state government, right? I would advise that, for example, for same-sex issues, you could just say same-sex people are really worried that they won't be able to get married because the state of so-and-so is preparing and drafting a bill to outlaw same-sex marriage. That's it. Like, you're not talking about the values, you're not virtue signaling, you're just saying, here's the cause, here's what is causing the concern, the suffering, and here are the people who are hurting and who are at risk by that. Okay? I believe when you do that, you are kind of blame proofing your business. When you focus on the suffering and the factual cause, not who started, who's to blame, whether or not it was justified, you are able to use your business as that microphone to bring awareness and to speak into it, but kind of avoid, I don't like using that word, but ultimately we're trying to protect our business, and we want to avoid the kind of blunder that I talked about at the beginning. Okay, and here's the last point I want to make, and then I'd be interested to see what's going on in the chat. Dare I look? Because I haven't been. I've wanted to walk specifically through this blueprint, and I know a lot of you have great wisdom in the chat. You might be sharing some thoughts about this as well, agreeing with me, disagreeing with me, but this is where I would say we need to go. And so I'll just leave you with this. After you've motive checked, and you can talk about the people who are hurting without railing against theories on causation and who's to blame and who's at fault, this is how you criticism proof your decision to use your business to speak about this. Ready? The way that you criticism proof your decision to use your business in this way as a microphone for a certain cause is to talk about, and this means you need to actually be doing it before you just talk about it, talk about how you are helping and what you are doing to help the people who are suffering as a result of this issue. Okay? That's how we prevent the criticism of just being a keyboard warrior. As I said, that can be used pejoratively. It can be used factually. Typically it is a bit of a pejorative term. But that's how we protect from, I'm really passionate about this and it makes me freaking mad and I want to lash out at somebody and I'm going to use my business because it has the biggest audience. Friends, I don't want you to make this kind of mistake and a blunder. However, I do want you to share about something that you're passionate about and that's important to you, as important to you as your business, or maybe even more important than your business to you. And the way to make sure that you achieve that is, like I say, to get involved somehow helping your local unhoused community, a community, like I say, that is important to you. A lot of people of Ukrainian descent or Syrian descent or Jewish descent or whatever you think about who's to blame in those geopolitical issues, whose fault it is, et cetera, et cetera. What if you just said, I am involved in this way. I am helping bring relief or food or aid. I'm working for the Red Cross to bring aid to this people group who are suffering because of this cause. Think about the most successful nonprofits you know. Commercials for, I don't know, Tier Fund or Doctors Without Borders or World Vision Canada, World Vision. I knew the head of World Vision in Canada, and this is one of the things that they intentionally did in order to rise above kind of the partisan bickering that can happen. People saying, well, I'm not going to support you now because you took X stance or because you believe Y about this issue. Uh, the way to rise above all that, and nonprofits do this so well, is to just say this huge refugee crisis was caused by this war right here. And they don't go into the geopolitics, the leaders, the background, the socioeconomic classes, and who started and all that. They get into, so here's what we're doing to bring about relief. Here is why we think it's so important to help. And then they do that. And even people who say, I don't really, I disagree. I disagree with this side of the issue. It becomes pretty hard to blame or throw stones at somebody who is just saying, no, but regardless of all that, these people are hurting, and here's what I'm doing to help the cause of bringing them the relief, the aid, the service that they need. Okay? So, to me, again, that is how sometimes we will need to use our businesses. And by need, I mean it's important to you. You can always decide not to do it, and that doesn't speak lesser of you or lesser of your passion about an issue in any way at all. But if you feel like, no, I've got to say something. Like I say, decide whether or not you need to or just want to. Then, when you need to, use that motive check. Talk just about the suffering of the people and the cause in very general ways. And can you talk about the issue without railing against who you think is to blame? Because typically, when there is an issue, somebody caused it, but that's where you can get into all kinds of, you think about Russia, Ukraine, for example. Oh, well, Russia invaded Ukraine in whatever it was, 2020. Well, yeah, no, but they've been fighting since here. Yeah, and then we're going all the way back. And so many countries are like that. And hey, wade into those waters academically or emotionally if you'd like on your own channels. But I would say, again, if you do that in your business, you are risking everything. There's a smarter way to do it in a way that honors your passions. Focus on the suffering and the factual causation. Can you talk about the people who are hurting without railing against who you perceive to be the perpetrators? And when you do, can you talk about what you're actually doing to help? Because that's another check. Maybe, do I care about this as much as I think I do? Well, if I do, maybe it's time for me to help. Time for me to get involved. Time for me to call to action people to join me in the work of helping alleviate suffering for a certain people who are experiencing some very negative things. Okay? That is, to me, how we talk about in our business political issues, social issues in the very best way, in a way that honors our passion and all the work we've done to build our business. Okay? Let me see what's going on here in the chat. Pretty quiet. So a lot of people were just kind of trepidatiously waiting in the wings there. Any comments? Any questions? Okay, we got Mark kind of putting some spirited gloss, meat, vegan. Yeah, there's things like that. Good. And we got puns around the suffer ring. And so that, to me, friends, is how we talk about it. Any questions? This is kind of your chance to ask a few things, anything about officiating, anything about that. I'd love to hear it. Now's your chance before we sign off. So Jane says, I avoid talking about all these issues. And like I said, I know you joined late. That is absolutely your prerogative. I don't think it speaks any less of you to not use your business to do this. But those of us who feel passionate about it sometimes wonder, how do I do this? How do I go about this? Should I get into this or shouldn't I? And you're going to make that decision for yourself in the best way possible for you. Okay, so any questions before we sign off? Hopefully that was helpful. Suzanne says, I don't talk about them because I don't understand it all and who's doing what. Yeah, and like I say, I think we can look at suffering and say, okay, those people are hurting. They're displaced, or, there's typically objective ways to understand suffering. Everybody from counselors to philosophers to medical personnel. Okay, there is suffering going on. We've identified that. But like you say, that's why I say it's so fraught with peril when you start saying, here's why it's happening. Here's who's to blame, or things like that. Personally, you will have an opinion, even if your opinion is, I don't know enough. That's great. But what we don't want to do is foray into that world and blunder our business into something where, like I say, you alienate people. And some people say, well, now I'm never going to patronize your business because you said X or Y, or because you believe X or Y about this issue. Now you're never going to get my business. Okay. Now that may happen anyway. I've had some people in my videos, for example, in the comments say, I followed your stuff and I watched it all until I heard you say something like, I pronounce you husband and husband. Now I'm never watching your videos again. And to that, I say, again, that's just something I've decided to be very unequivocal about personally, because it does affect my business. But I did run for office as well this past year. It was a 4-month campaign to be in the provincial legislature. I ran for a third party, which continued to be the third party even after I ran. But most of you did not know about that. I did not trumpet that from the rooftops. I did not speak about the causes in my business. And this was a reason why. So this is what I'm talking about, is for LGBTQ same-sex marriage. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be an ally, the best ally I can. I have kids. If one of them is a part of that community, I want them to grow up in a world where it's safe for them. Now, somebody might disagree with that, and they might take issue with me, but I'm just going to keep pointing to the people who are adversely affected by not being in an equal society, for example. Okay. And so that I'm not going to point to who and what and all that stuff. I'm just going to say, I'm going to keep being an ally. So sometimes we need to, and other times we might not need to. Okay. Kate says, I'm hesitant to reveal my thoughts in a group for fear of retribution. Understandable. But on my personal page, I reveal the truth as I see it. There you go. And if somebody takes the time to seek you out and see what you think about something on your personal page, and then they'll never shop at your business, well, again, they really did some research, and that's fine. But we have to understand that I think Paul said it last week really well. When I hinted that I'll be talking about that this week, he said, there are risks and there are rewards. There are benefits to taking a stance, but there are also definitely negative things that can come about as well, as with everything we do, right? Let's see. Mark says, I live in an area where I'm a distinct political minority. For 35 years in business, I've kept my politics invisible in all my business interactions, especially as a clinical hypnotherapist. So there you go. That is your choice. Thank you very much. And Jane says, I only post about animals and weddings. I prefer personal issues kept personal. Okay, great. Yeah, and this is an example. Thank you for sharing how you interact. I really appreciate that you are sharing your gauging of those issues in the chat. Something might come along one day that really gets your goat, that you feel like, I can't not say anything anymore. And I hope this kind of rubric would help you in a situation like that. Tamara says, I'm passionate about those issues, but intend not to speak on it as far as my business is concerned. And there you go. Yeah. Hey, Ben, good to see you. You missed a bit of a humdinger, maybe. Suzanne says, just off the subject. Sure. How do I get back into the academy? Oh, Suzanne, how do you get back? You go to unboringweddingacademy.com/login. And of course, email us. Jen will help you out if you've been out of the loop. You say you've been out of the loop for a while and you need to get back on track. unboringweddingacademy.com/login. If your browser saved your login information or you tucked that away somewhere, that's how you get back into the course. the love story caster, all that good stuff. But definitely do hit us up if you're having trouble getting back in. Welcome back into the loop. We all fall out of the loop sometimes, right? Jane says education is the best suggestion. Yeah, there is no end to, and this is just something for me as a bit of a theology geek, ancient languages, Hebrew and Greek. Like, that's just like the example of a kind of a silo that I dig into. And every year or two, there's more and more and more coming to light about ancient languages or what people thought or archaeology or etc. So it's kind of like a PhD where they say, an inch wide and a mile deep about a topic. Like every topic is like that, and you can go so deep on any topic. And I think the more educated and informed you are on any topic, the more you tend to say, I'm not educated and informed enough, right? It's kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect that I've always loved. Dunning-Kruger, they did a study and found that people who knew the least about something felt that they knew the most, and conversely, people who knew the most about any given topic self-identified and felt like they knew the least. And so something happens when you start to educate, when you start to delve deeper into something. You start to feel like, whoa, this is actually huge. The less you know about something, the more we tend to oversimplify. And that's why I say the one undeniable piece is where we can talk about suffering and what we're doing to help. I'm trying to get involved in volunteering at a local shelter, for example. So I'm not just sitting around saying, there's a lot of people experiencing homelessness, somebody should do something, and here's the reasons, and it's socioeconomic this, and post-late capitalism that. Well, yeah, but sure, I can have thoughts on that, but am I actually getting involved in helping people who are experiencing homelessness? That is, like I said, the ultimate criticism proof. And then once you start doing that, you might realize, as Jane said, I need even more education. And sometimes that means experience, right? Okay, so Bonnie says, I do think it's about your personal values and knowing where you draw the line. I don't need to volunteer my beliefs, but I know when to walk away others. Yeah, that is very true. And something might come up in a personal interaction. Like I say, this is where those of us, because of social media, who have social media and a business now, we feel like, whoa, this is a decision that wasn't available in the same way 20 years ago, using our business as a platform for speaking about things. Okay. Mark says, really appreciate it. Okay, what are we talking about here? I'm missing. I'm glad you're saying, okay, great topic and presentation. Mercy says, I'm not sure if I missed the Officiantly launch. Officiantly is for members of Unboring Wedding Academy. There's no way, if you're a member, that you missed it unless you were not checking emails from me at all. Multiple emails every day. We went live, et cetera, et cetera. So check the email. If you're a member, check the email address that you typically get emails from me from. We talked about it. We launched it. 130 people have purchased Officiantly as lifetime founders, which means they never have to pay again. And now that software is closed again while we continue to work on it, take feedback from those members, because ultimately we are creating the world's enduringly best platform for creating and managing wedding ceremonies for officiants and celebrants. So you couldn't have missed it if you're a member, or you didn't check your email, and you're going to go check and you're going to see, wow, Mark messaged every day, replays, and went live, and here's all the YouTube links, and here's the sale, and all that stuff. Okay, so Claire says, being informed is all about being mindful of each other and thoughts and feelings. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Suffering evokes kindness typically, unless you're some kind of psychopath or sociopath. When we focus on that, we are engaging the emotional core, the kindness part, and invoking people to help, invoking and evoking people to help. Whereas when you start assigning blame, getting to root causes, who's responsible, whose fault it is, that's more the intellectual side. And I don't think we should use our businesses to engage in the intellectual side, whereas we are more likely to have positive outcomes for our business when we're saying, I'm passionate about people suffering from this, and therefore I'm speaking about this in my business. drawing awareness. Please join me if you'd like. That, like I say, to me is more of a criticism proof. We got an efficiently question here. Is there a way to trigger a reminder for the family and friends responses if they haven't replied? That automatically goes out to the couple. Shoot me emails, Mark, for sure, because I'm literally just compiling a document. Other members have done that. Mark, I'm using Efficiently and I'm noticing this and I wonder if it can do that. As I said, we are going to be working on Efficiently endlessly, literally, no end in sight, upgrades, updates, things like that. There is a reminder that goes out to the couple automatically. It just kicks out from the system. I'm not sure exactly when. I have a meeting with the developers tomorrow, but a reminder for the friends and family would be really great as well. Perhaps it already does that, but I'm not 100% sure because there are hundreds of things to check inside Efficiently. All right, friends, this is almost a full hour. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. And shoot me any emails if you're a member about Efficiently. I'd love to keep on you about that, keeping up to date on what you're finding, what you're learning. Love that some of you are using on tablets. I'm definitely going to focus on that with the developers. I see Mike was talking about using it on the phone, so that's awesome. If you want to join the Academy, unboringweddingacademy.com, that gives you access to the love story caster, which you just paste your couple's answers in, writes your love story for you in minutes. Later this year, actually, it's very late in the year, in 2025, early, we'll be reopening Efficiently for everyone to use. And so that's coming your way. So I spoil Unboring Wedding Academy members because this is the community that I love. And like I say, been building for years, really care about it. And everybody in that community makes my life so great, so special. And I try to return that any way that I can. So jump in, unboringweddingacademy.com, join the community, Facebook group of over 700 members. And it's just a lot of kumbaya over there. People helping each other, people supporting each other, people encouraging one another, sharing ideas, sharing thoughts. That's where we have a lot of these conversations about the love story cast or Efficiently or the process or that kind of thing. Mark, maybe you'll be watching from Cabo next week, maybe not. Great. I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about next week, but not totally firmed up. I have seen questions around, Mark, big wedding, elopement, what's the difference? Things like that. I do like to take your questions, see what questions are being asked in our Facebook group, and answer those in the Unboring Wedding Show. So join me again next week. I will be here next Wednesday, same time, same place. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to another weekend, another Wednesday with you. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. And see you then. Till then, friends, as you say, marry on.